Hey, this is LOA Today, the Law of Attraction show. Welcome to LOA Today. My name is Walt
and today is Friday, December the 14th, 2012. And with us today is Debbie Johnson. She's the owner of BDT Marketing Solutions and the website guidedabundance.com. She's a law of attraction coach, and in her view, a view that we share, life is a journey and not a destination. She believes that we are guided, almost shoved from behind in her words, from time to time. And if we follow our passion, it will lead us to our purpose, which itself leads to prosperity. She started in corporate America and human resources and planned to save and retire young, but she found that her ladder was up against the wrong wall, as she describes it. She realized that most people pursuing the same dreams didn't really start living until retirement, and that kind of stopped her short. She knew she wanted more and that there had to be more, so she tried network marketing, struggled with it, discovered the law of attraction during that time period, went on to own a small grocery store, and then decided to start building a business online, which is when things started to take off for her, and she's going to tell us her story today. So, Debbie Johnson, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
So I hope I haven't taken away all your thunder by giving that quick overview, but tell us in your words, how's your journey been over the last, say, 10 years or so?
Amazing. The last 10 years have just totally turned around for me, and in being able to just allow my life to happen and have it be magical versus going out there and beating my head against the wall trying to make it happen. And so it was really interesting to find out that all along I had this available to me, and yet I kept struggling so hard to try to get there that I didn't ever just, kick back and allow it to just come.
Boy, does that sound familiar. It really sounds very familiar to us because we've gone through the exact same kind of thing. Now, when you first got started with your own business after you decided to leave corporate America, you decided to go with network marketing. How did you end up making that decision?
Well, I've always been very entrepreneurial, but yet I've always had a desire to help other people, and that's what I saw in network marketing is that, I could go out and really make some good money from helping other people to make money. And so I was very drawn to building a team, working within a team, and everybody helping everybody else. And so I think that that's what I originally saw. When I started trying to do that, however, I quickly realized that even though I might be able to find some success and do well, I couldn't seem to coach other people, even though they seemed to be doing exactly the same things I was doing. I was just really thrown by that. I thought, well, if I do X number of calls and I get this result, why is someone else who's doing exactly the same thing not getting the same result? And really that's what led me to Law of Attraction, is trying to understand all of that.
And what did you find out? What conclusion did you come to?
Well, I realized that I didn't know what their beliefs were and what obstacles that were hidden from view were actually keeping them from the result that they were trying to achieve. So, that was the big eye-opener for me, is that, yes, you can do exactly the same thing, but if you don't believe it's going to work, or you've got some programming in there that, there's no way I'm ever going to make any money, that no matter how much I would work with them, it wasn't ever going to happen.
Yeah, it's amazing how our limiting beliefs get in our own way, and until we run up against them, we don't even know they're theirs half the time.
That's it. That's that exactly, because, people would swear that, I'm excited when I call, and I want this, and I'm working it really, really hard, and yet we would see that, the result wasn't there, and we had to dive a little bit deeper to really begin to examine what those obstacles were and begin to work through them together. And once we did that, then I could show them the mechanical steps that could lead them to the money that they were looking for.
Now, was money the main thing you were looking for, or were you looking for other things in your life, and how did your initial journey with Law of Attraction lead you along that path?
Well, it was very interesting to find out that money wasn't everything I was looking for, because I really believed for a number of years that it was. when I was 9 years old, I sat in the closet and I prayed for $1 million. And I guess that I didn't realize at that point that it wasn't just going to be there in the morning. I got up and it wasn't there, and I felt really let down. And I thought, wow, now I can't help my family. And so for many, many, many years, I really thought I was looking for just money. And I found a lot of other like-minded people in network marketing who were also telling me they were just looking for money. But once the money began to come, I realized that that really wasn't it at all. So, through trial and error and having money and not having money, through getting rid of my own obstacles, I realized that I was looking for something much, much greater.
So what were some of the things you were looking for that were much greater?
For me, I found that just being happy, having peace of mind, knowing that I don't have to struggle anymore, being able to go out and share that message with other people, that this is a journey and it's all perfect and you don't have to do any certain thing to live it to the fullest. And that to me has just been so extremely fulfilling. When I started looking at some of the Abraham Hicks materials, I think that's when I realized that everybody really only wants to have one thing. And, we disguise it as so many other things. Once you get wealth, then all of a sudden your health goes down. Or if you get, you have wonderful health and you're looking for wealth, or you're looking for a relationship, but it really is all just one thing, and that's peace of mind and happiness that happens to be shrouded, in a costume of all of these other things that we pretend that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's true. Happiness and joy. Joy is my favorite word to describe that. In fact, our theme song around the show is called Spread Joy, which tells you how important I think that is. But
absolutely, it really is all about that and sharing it with other people. And I know that that's why you guys are doing what you're doing, because there's nothing that feels better than living in that joy and going out and sharing it with other people. And along the way, guess what? You get to have the money and you get to have the health and you get to have the great relationships, but you go at it from the other way around.
And I'm glad that you emphasized the fact that it's something that you enjoy, because that's the main motivation behind Louise and I doing this. I mean, we wanted to do something that we both could do together that we would really enjoy. And we found that we actually came to the conclusion separately at relatively the same time that doing an online radio show about the law of attraction would be something we would both enjoy doing together, which was pretty cool. We came to the same conclusion separately. But, the whole idea of doing something out of joy is actually something that's kind of new for me, because for most of my life I've been trying to build businesses not because I love doing them, but because I wanted to acquire the money so I could go do the things I wanted to do, and not realizing that was the wrong way around. It doesn't quite work that way.
That's right. We come at it from the opposite direction, but yet we come full circle. And that's been something for me, too, to understand that we really can't get it wrong, that we're here to experience, and we're going to have experiences, and we're going to enhance all that is through the experiences that we're having. So we can't get it wrong. And so your journey and my journey have come around to a knowing that helps us to go out and share that knowing with others, and I'm very grateful for all of it.
Now, after you started with the network marketing and stumbled a little bit with it, you decided to take kind of a left-hand turn and went into retail with a grocery store. Tell us that story.
Well, I thought that corporate America wasn't it, and network marketing, it had been wonderful at times, but it was sporadic, because I would choose a company, we would build a team, and all of a sudden the company would go out of business, or these other things that had happened. And so I really thought that I wanted some stability in my life, and so a small town grocery store seemed like that was it. And I had a 3-year-old at the time, and it was wonderful to be able to, have him be there and just run it as a family. But what we found is that it was like having a newborn for about 10 or 11 years, because we couldn't ever get away, and it just was a whole lot of hard work. But, again, another step on my journey that helped me to really understand and relate to people in all areas. So very grateful for the experience. But it was interesting. By the time that I'd had enough, I was visualizing that I just had to get out of this grocery store. I needed to have a buyer come along, and we were in a market that I thought there was just no way we were going to ever find anybody to buy this grocery store. It was in the winter time, and there was a lot of snow on the ground, and I was pretty miserable. I thought, gosh, there's just some way. So I sat down and visualized a buyer coming along, and I also visualized being in my motor home along the water. And it was only about 2 months later that the person who owned the grocery store 13 miles away came over and bought our grocery store for his son. Not only did they buy the grocery store, they also bought our home. And so by the time that summer rolled around, I was sitting in that motorhome along that river and took about a year off enjoying that whole experience and realizing just how powerful I really was. It almost scared me at that point.
So basically, not only did the changes come, but they came more than you expected within the period of, 6 months?
About 6 months.
I mean, that's quite a turnaround there. First you have a home and a store. You want to get rid of the store. The store goes away, so does the home, and now you have a motorhome. Boom!
Yeah, that's right. And, the funny thing is I'd almost forgotten the whole time of visualizing it. I was sitting out in a lawn chair along the water, and I thought, wow, this is exactly what I visualized. I can't believe it's all happened.
Debbie,
it was pretty miraculous. It really was. But when I began to understand the process of, thoughts being electrical and emotions being magnetic, and really started to look at the mechanics of that, then I really started to wrap my mind around how I could continue to manifest these things and help others to do the same. That was a moment for me that came out of sort of desperation back at the time I wanted to sell that grocery store.
Debbie, you used the word, it was kind of, I think you said scary, at how powerful you found you were. Mm-hmm. That's something that we have discussed a little bit, in that part of what the law of attraction talks about is that we're responsible for our own lives, and realizing how powerful we are and taking that responsibility is a bit scary.
It really is, and you begin to carefully examine, what's going on in your head and what's going on around you, because when you look around and you realize that you've created it all, then, that can be really, really eye-opening, but also very scary. But knowing that then if I've created this, I have the power to change it, is totally invigorating, and you just have to begin to look at, okay, how did I get here? So then now how can I get to the next place that I want to be? Mm-hmm. And what I found is that we spend so much time and emotion and feeling on what we don't want that it's very, very easy to continue to create and attract more of that. But what we do want is a different story. We think we spend a lot of time visualizing and thinking about it and wanting it and desiring it and taking action toward it. But when we look at the balance of the amount of time, there's so much more emotion that we put into the things that we don't want that we either stop what's coming dead in its tracks, or we continue to create more of the same, what we didn't want.
Yeah, that we're programmed from early life. If you think of little kids, what's one of the first words they learn? No. Mm-hmm. And our parents and teachers and the other adults around us get focused on the negative, what we're doing wrong, so it trains us very quickly to focus on what's not working. And
you're right, and it really does happen at a young age. My grandson is about, I think he's 18 months now, and I thought it was so interesting because if I put something on his high chair tray that he doesn't like, not only does he not want it on his high chair tray, but he's probably going to pick it up and throw it.
Right.
And
right.
It was just amazing to me. It's like, well, you don't have to eat it, you know? And so the fact that we've got all of these wonderful things around us in our lives, we tend to have the same response. It's like, well, that can be there and I can just ignore it. I don't have to pay attention to it if it's something that I don't want. I don't have to grab it and throw it and try and push it away with such emotion.
Correct.
It's funny how that happens too. Although I would say there are a lot of people, and I think you're inferring this, a lot of people who are adults who still throw stuff away with emotion.
Absolutely, and I work with folks all the time. Right now I'm working with AAA. We're with their outside sales force, and it's so interesting to see, you know, what adults do and how they do push things away, and how they also we're very good at believing all kinds of different things that cause us, you know, problems that get in our way. For example, I never make any sales on Monday. It's always a bad day for me. And so as we begin to examine that thought process and realize, really, do you believe that? Is it possible that you could have a good day on Monday? Again, just taking a little bit of that emotional charge off. Well, I could have a good day, right? Have you ever had a good day? You know, well, yeah, maybe back when I first started, Mondays were pretty good, right? So we walk through that process, and we have to take it in little baby steps because there was so much charge on it, and then we can continue to move until all of a sudden Monday might be their best day of the week. So it's really, really fun work.
Now, within this timeline of yours, your past that we were describing and discussing here, where did you make the decision to become a law of attraction coach?
When, you know, I don't even know that it was a conscious decision for me, but it would have been probably as I continued to dabble in network marketing, and also even as I was leaving the grocery store, I realized that there were a number of people who always came to me so that I could give them this pep talk, we used to call it, or really help them through the situations that were going on in their lives using, you know, law of attraction. And so it just, instead of me making a decision, it just unfolded in that way as more and more and more people came to me.
So roughly what year are we talking about here?
Let's see. I would say probably was very active the year that I did sell the store. So we're looking at about 2004, 2005.
Okay, so really just before The Secret came out.
Mm-hmm. I would say that I was actively practicing law of attraction in the mid to late 90s, and then, you know, at about 2004 and 5, really started using it a lot with other people. And yeah, that's true, because people would call me and they'd say, you know, I just saw The Secret, and that's what you've been telling me. This is funny.
That must be gratifying, actually.
Well, yes, but, you know, we have a tendency to beat ourselves up, so it's like, wow, why didn't I do more with that thing, right?
Yeah. Why did it take so long, or why didn't I...
I don't know why we can't just bask in it, but, you know, that's what we have a tendency to do.
Oh, my goodness.
And I find myself saying, well, why didn't I figure this out sooner? Why is it taking so long for me to realize this was what was going on, or this is what I needed to do? Instead
or I know better, right? I mean, if you're a coach, then why does someone have to continue to remind you of the very things that you teach? And of course, that's because life happens, and oftentimes we do react, and you know, those old habits, those old roads that we've made in our brain are just very, very quick to take us where we don't want to be unless we, you know, stop and put on the brake and say, wait a minute. You know? Yeah,
reprogramming ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs isn't easy. It isn't easy. I'm a retired psychotherapist, and what I would tell people is it's simple, but it's not easy. The steps are not complicated. You do this, you do this, you do this. But the emotions, the old messages all get in the way. And it's not as if you can just flip a switch. At least most people I know can't just flip a switch and change everything to a new mode of thinking, feeling, and believing and behaving.
No, it's so true. And I think I was trying to remember who it was that was talking about the thorn. And maybe it was Gary Zukav. I'm not exactly sure, but the idea that you can roll along pretty well and until you hit that little thorn that's in the end of your finger, and you're like, there's still something there that I didn't realize it was there. But as soon as it gets touched, it takes me to a whole different place. And I think that that's what I experienced. That we're certainly a process. And that's why we're still here, right? And so every day there's another opportunity to have something in our lives mirror to us the things that we can still work on. And that little tiny thorn is our little first indicator that, maybe there's something more there within myself that could use a little bit of work.
I guess I must be the most successful person on earth then, because I run into thorns every day. I'm constantly pushing them out of the way.
Debbie, is there anything you do on a daily basis to sort of ground yourself in positive thinking?
I do. In fact, I write a little article called Good Morning Universe. And when I get up in the morning, well, even before I get out of bed, the first, thing that I'm doing is focused on gratitude, as well as is spending some time in meditation. And if I start my day in the right place, I find that the things that come at me that day continue to just kind of, go right on by. I feel like I'm in a little bit of a bubble and I can just flow it along. But if I don't take time to do that, then I find that I can quickly react to the outside world and find those thorns in a hurry. So I do spend that time every single morning. But more than that, I now, all through my day, spend time just focused on being present in the moment, being focused on my real journey and how I can help other people, try to really take every opportunity to just pause for just a second, because it just makes all the difference in the world. So it's a constant, all day, every day thing for me now, but I've taken a long time to get there.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not sure exactly what the time frame was, but at some point you got the online bug, and you've described that as being the turning point where everything started to take off. When was it and what happened?
Wow, I think, I'm trying to remember, it was about 6 years ago, when I realized that now I could speak to people about this message. And at that point, I found Twitter and got real excited about Twitter, and it was so amazing because I lived in a town with only 1,000 people when I had the grocery store, so I'd find a few like-minded people, but the entire internet just brought the world to me, all of the people who were like-minded, and it was an energy and excitement that I'd never experienced before, because, many of us for small periods of time think that maybe we're a little bit crazy.
We thought that all our lives.
And so it was like, wow, there's a lot of woo-woo people like me out there that are living their life and have gone down a journey that's taken them to this spot. And it looks different, but we're in a real similar place. And that was just so exciting. And I began to work over the internet because of that town of only 1,000 people.
And it sounds like you got involved in Twitter right after it started, because if you started about 5 years ago, Twitter, if I remember correctly, came out around 2005. So, I mean, you're within a year or two of its starting, so you were actually one of the early adopters.
Well, I think that, and I don't even remember what led me to Twitter, I think I had gone to some class where they talked about Twitter, and I thought it was really silly, thinking that, why would I want to, put these little tweets out there talking about where I went for coffee and let everybody know. I mean, I had no idea of the power of Twitter to really reach out to like-minded people. And what I quickly realized is that this was the perfect place to practice law of attraction, because if I could reach out and having myself magnetized and reach out to others, I was going to attract a whole lot of people to me from all over the world. And so that was just truly, truly exciting. And I really started to look at how you could use Twitter to market any business, and began teaching some classes and doing some seminars on Twitter marketing. And no matter what the field was, Twitter could be something that could bring you all kinds of targeted customers. And so that really opened up a whole new door for me, and I started spending, probably 25% of my time just helping other people to build their businesses via Twitter.
So Twitter has been your main social marketing vehicle, it sounds like.
It is, and in fact, I'm not big into Facebook, and a lot of people are saying to me, wow, what about Facebook, or what about Google Plus? And I do like Pinterest because I like pictures. So, but Twitter for me, it was so amazing to realize that you could take anybody who had a Twitter account and you could see all the people who were attracted to them. And that was just really an eye-opener to me. And because where else can you get that kind of a list and begin to attract those people over to you if you're like-minded, or just, find like-minded people to share with?
Yeah, that's true. Twitter is a lot more direct access, whereas a Facebook or Google Plus, you don't tend to find more. You can't as easily search on interests. You can find people, but searching for interests is not quite as easy. So I can see why you would draw that conclusion.
Right, and if you look at, whether it's Deepak Chopra or Bob Proctor or whoever it is, I mean, if you are out there talking to people about the same things they're talking about, the people who are interested in them are your customer. So that just became a real easy avenue for me to find the people that I resonated with.
Now, as you've been both pursuing your own LOA practices online and coaching others and providing marketing assistance and so forth, think back over that last 4 or 5 years ago, and if you can draw any interesting stories out that are particularly poignant to what we've been talking about. What I'm looking for is, can we put into concrete detail what actually happens when you apply this stuff?
Well, there are so many little stories of people having successes. What I find more than that is that along the way, people realize the power that they have, and they begin to live their life with so much more joy and so much more purpose. It's about realizing that this really is a choose-your-own-adventure novel, or it is your own movie. And so, yes, you can have success in business. You can manifest all kinds of wonderful things. But as we talked about earlier in the conversation, maybe it's just not about the money. So, and we know it's not, right? And so what we find is that people just begin to live their life so much more fully, and realizing that, that there's nothing that they can't have. There's nothing that they can't be, do, or have. So to me, yes, I can share little tiny stories. I've got people who have, gone and manifested some pretty big amounts of money. I also have people who, are now working their dream business. But more than that is just realizing that maybe that dream business is only their dream business for right here, right now.
Which is
and
okay.
They now have the power to create so much more.
Right.
Oh, sure. And that's part of the process. It's part of the process for adults, and there's actually a mode of education that Louise and I are into. We helped found an alternative school based on this model called the Sudbury model, under which kids who are involved in that model of education basically pursue their interests day to day under their own guidance and tutelage with assistance whenever they ask for assistance. It's quite unstructured compared to traditional education. And what you're describing for adults is very much the same thing. People can start off on a particular interest, be really interested in it, work it for a while, and then find, not really what I want to do after all. I think I want to do B instead of A, so I'm going to switch over to B. And you have the freedom to do that. It's not like anybody saying, oh, no, you have to stick with job A. You are going to be on that job for the rest of your life. Right,
exactly. And as you see it as a spiritual journey, then all of a sudden you realize that, I've got to get to there. I've got to get up to that level before I can see the next thing I want and the next thing and the next thing. And so with my own children, it's very interesting to watch them go through that process and realize that, they're understanding that, this is where I am for today, right? And then the fear of making a mistake begins to go away. So you get rid of all of those obstacles and that energy that's tied to that emotion of fear in your life as you realize I can live today and I can get up tomorrow and I can start, working towards something totally new. And our life begins to be a process of discovering what it is that we truly want through experiencing what we don't want.
Now, how old are you?
That's not it. That's not it. That's it.
Debbie, how old are your kids?
37 and 36 and 22.
And, okay, so they were pretty well grown before you came to your new belief system.
Yes, and that's one of the things I look at. Oh, my goodness. So now I get to really enjoy it, bringing this information to my grandchildren. But my 22-year-old, he was, he came in as a little Buddha, really. I mean, he taught me all along the way.
What kinds of things did he teach you?
That we really didn't need to worry, that everything was always okay. I was very driven early in his years, and it's like, oh, Mama, you can stay home today. We can go have fun, and you can do it tomorrow. And I'm like, oh no, there's no way I could do it tomorrow. I've got to do this and this and this and this, and so he would just really try to get me to just take a few minutes. And which became more and more and more time. And as I began to realize, wait a minute, I'm accomplishing so much more, right? When I'm not so driven, that he was a great teacher.
Boy, isn't that an interesting contrast, and one I've run into a lot in my life. Just what you just described, that the more engaged you are through excitement and so forth, the better you get things done. But when you try to go based on, I got to get this done, I got to get that done, things don't get done as fast. It's amazing.
It really is true, and I've experienced it so many times in my life. It reminds me of the story of where you're out, treading water, and you've got a air mattress that you're trying to get to, right? And so you reach for it, and it keeps moving a little bit further away from you.
Good analogy.
You can't quite get it, right? And so I spent a lot of time, and I realized, if I just relax a minute, everything will come to me. I don't have to try so hard to make it happen. And I took a lot of those personality tests through different jobs I had in corporate America. Now, type A driven personality, right? And so it was very interesting. I got a chance to take one not long ago, and I saw that, there's some areas where that's still there, but boy, there's a lot of areas where I've really come full circle to a place where I realize that you can sure push a lot of stuff away from you that you're trying to get to through that, that constant, struggling and driving to get something more.
You mentioned that your third child helped a lot in terms of your own transition in this way, but you also mentioned that you've been working LOA and teaching LOA to your grandchildren. What's been the experience there?
It's so interesting to see that they already know it. I mean, maybe I'm teaching it to them, or maybe I'm trying to remind them of what they already know, because I constantly see where they're masters at allowing, and that we're the ones that have forgotten all of it. And so they are teaching me and helping me to continue to remember more than I'm teaching them, I think.
Well, sounds like then you're practicing the ultimate model of the teacher, where the teacher becomes the student.
There you go. There you go. And realizing that that you're always the student. You know, that every day everybody is switching roles if you're open to it, and if you pause in the moment enough to catch it.
I can't remember.
But, you know, again, that type A-driven personality doesn't allow you much time to pause in the moment, does it?
No, that's true. I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but there was a YouTube video I saw that featured Marcy Shimoff, who appeared in The Secret, and she commented that people treat the people who are participating in The Secret as being the gurus, the teachers, and she wanted to emphasize, no, we're still students too. We're still learning how this stuff works. All we were doing was presenting the concepts.
Right. And you know, many of us seem to go through a period of time where we have resonated with the messages in The Secret Law of Attraction, and we can't seem to get enough of the material. You know, and I remember going through a period of time where, you know, I bought just about every book I could find. I had so many audio tapes back then, and would just try to immerse myself in it. And it was interesting because I began to realize that, you know, these people were certainly bringing me what I was asking for, but they also still continued every single day to find those thorns in their own lives and continue to grow and learn and share. So it's interesting that we're all gurus.
Yeah, we're all gurus.
Well, it's interesting. Back when I was in graduate school, getting my master's as a family therapist, we did a weekend retreat with a couple of our professors. And I remember the professor did something. He was able to see into somebody's personality or issue or whatever, and I just looked at him and I said, "You're amazing." And he said, "So what does that make you?" And I said, thought for only half a second. It came very quickly. I said, "Amazing and training."
There you go.
And I think it was a few years back, I said to my husband, "I'm not in training anymore. I am amazing." I have reached that status, and not as boastful, but it's like, I can do what they did. I'm good at what I do. And to own that and to continue to work that.
Absolutely. And if there is anything that really held me back initially in coaching, it really would have been the idea that, wait a minute, I haven't got this all figured out yet, so I better not really begin to share it, because then people will see that there's a side of me where I still don't have it. And so for a while, I thought, people would call me and we would work through their issues, and then I'd go back to my own issues. And so I thought, man, how can I coach this? But then I realized that wasn't the case at all, that I had a powerful message to share, and that I was passionate about it, and that it is what I wanted to do, and that it was okay to let everybody know that I continue to work on this every single day, and I always will. And that doesn't mean that you can't have wonderful joy right here, right now, because I do, but I certainly don't have it all figured out yet.
And as a coach, I see it similarly to when I was a therapist running a women's group. I just needed to be one step ahead of them to share, because as a professional, I felt I needed to know a little bit more. But as one human being to another, it's okay to say, hey, I'm on the same level you are, or I'm not quite there, but this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing that works, and this is how I deal with what doesn't work. And people, I know I relate much better to people who have foibles and stumble. If somebody's got it all figured out, I generally can't relate to them because I don't have it all figured out.
That's right. That's right. And you begin to realize that, like you say, one step ahead is often enough, and maybe not even a step ahead in many areas. So, we can constantly have that exchange, and every day I learn something from the people around me, and sometimes it's from what they're struggling with, that I really can learn and continue to grow by helping them, even though I don't have the answer. And I found oftentimes the answers, come right when you need them, right? And so by moving forward toward whatever it is we're working on, then the answer can come at that point where we're ready for it, And so that's the growth process for me is taking a few more steps forward and then allowing more, and a few more steps forward and allowing more.
The thing I found too is, and sort of by accident, is I would share with people what my need was, what I was thinking about, what I was trying to accomplish. And very often they would say, oh, I know somebody, or I did this, or go here, or go there. And at first I felt apologetic in that I wasn't expecting them to figure it out for me, or I wasn't aware of the gifts that they were offering me. And I finally stopped feeling guilty and started just embracing and saying thank you, and knowing that that is a viable and valuable avenue for getting needs met by sharing with other people, because you never know who knows what, who, where, what, or could have any of the answers that I am trying to find.
Yeah, aren't we silly? I mean, because, those of us who believe in law of attraction, we know we have a powerful asking for whatever this is that we're looking for, whether it's, a little bit of information or guidance or whatever it might be. And yet, that's a good example of how we may not really allow it to come to us through the channel it's supposed to, because we're like, wait a minute, And so by being in that state of allowing that it can be coming from anywhere and being grateful for it, we just continue to open up more and more avenues for it to come to us. So, yeah, that's very interesting.
And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking part of that may have been my upbringing to be self-sufficient, to figure things out for yourself, which we can't. We don't have, there are theorists that say we do have all the answers. Well, we do, but we don't remember, so we have to be reminded by other people, I guess.
That's right. We certainly do. And to realize that any kind of interaction can bring that information to us. And sometimes it's realizing that, that whatever that thing is that's really bothering us is the message, or it's going to lead us to the answer. So instead of, again, pushing away from it, saying, oh, come on in, let's figure out what this is and be grateful. I've been dabbling a little bit with the Access Consciousness information, really looking at asking the question, how does it get any better than this, or what else is possible, or how else could I see this situation? And just by asking, I'm realizing that, the answers are coming pretty darn quickly and through ways that I certainly wouldn't expect them.
It's kind of a truism, really, that when we're dealing with problems, whether our own or somebody else's, it's always easier to see their problem because we can see the limitations that they're up against. For some reason, it's always harder to see our own limitations. We're so blind to them. I guess it's because over time we have so effectively convinced ourselves that those limitations aren't really there that we don't see them. But yeah, I wonder if that perhaps plays a role in why it's easier, for instance, to be a coach than it is to fix your own problems. Whereas, healing thyself, physician, heal thyself, not so easy to do because of that blindness to those limitations that we have.
Absolutely. I think that's what spouses are for, isn't it?
Certainly in our case.
I know it is at my house, And it's so funny because the moment that I begin to find myself getting frustrated or irritated with another person is when I now stop and say, this is an opportunity, but it took me so long to get there. This has to be an opportunity. There has to be something here because I just hit that thorn again. So it's so exciting, though, when you begin to look at it that way and can get now excited about, learning more about what was bothering you instead of just pushing against it and getting angry and irritated.
Louise actually has a little acronym for that. She calls it an FGO, which is a friggin' growth opportunity.
Another one. Are we grown yet?
It's always done with sort of a shrug of the arms, like, oh, shoot, not another one of those.
Yeah, I know. It just seems, and I really look at what's going on in my life, and when you started having one of those terrible days where they're just one after another, right? And you realize, wait a minute, I believe in law of attraction. What am I doing, right?
Right. What is the universe so graciously giving me the opportunity to learn, and it's not going to go away until I learn it. Mm-hmm. So I might as well hunker down, put on my thinking cap, and stay still and figure out or, try and interact differently in the situation so that I don't have to do this again.
It's like the old Shell Oil commercial. The guy who ran the service station, he says, "Well, you can pay me now or you can pay me later."
That's right. It's right. I often teach some of my students that we really are all here with this, been created so perfectly that we attract absolutely everything that we need. And if you think about that, that's just amazing, that we were created to experience everything to the degree we need it. And so as you're going through and having an experience and your thoughts and feelings and emotions are supercharging it, then you're going to experience it more and more as long as you need to. Because at the moment that you no longer have that charge and that emotion attached to it and you start to take your attention off of it, you're not going to have that experience anymore. So as you start to really live your life that way, and you begin to welcome those experiences and know that you can quickly just be pushing them aside or letting them go around you, until they're no more. But I just get very excited about the idea that everything is so perfect that we get to really attract and bring to us the perfect situation that will bring us out the other side of that, and then on to the next and on to the next. And once it's no longer the day-to-day down in the mire of it, and it becomes, I'm moving through that to the next thing and then to the next thing. All of a sudden, with all of the pain gone, the joy just comes rushing in, and you really joyfully move through all of those things that used to cause you so much pain and fear and struggle.
Actually, that's something that I can directly relate to right now, because we just started LOA Today as a concept this summer. I started putting together the physical components of an online radio station in September. We did our first broadcast together in October, so this is really, really new for us. And even so, in December, I've been going pretty strong into Facebook. We've been doing the Twitter thing too, but more into Facebook. And as I've been exploring that, I'm learning all this stuff. All these different possibilities are coming to me that I hadn't even known about a month ago, or even in some cases a week ago. So just the kind of process you're describing, the information just keeps coming in new ways that I never, ever expected. And what you have to understand is I've been working with the web since it started. I mean, my business is on the web. I'm a web designer, developer, marketer, and so on and so forth. So it's not like I don't know this stuff, but even with the knowledge that I have, the stuff that I've learned in just the last week has been blowing my mind.
When you're ready for it, right? I mean, it's so amazing to me that it just does come faster and faster, and I think that we're seeing that the internet and social media has been such a catalyst in that we all created that together through our desire to be able to connect to a much bigger group of individuals, and so now there are no limits. There's no limit on the information that we can draw to us in a few seconds. I remember living in that little tiny town and with dial-up internet, trying to get to the information or drive to the bookstore or wait for the postman to bring me new audio tapes.
Right.
You know, and it's just all brand new now. I mean, it's so exciting that the information can be yours so quickly. And along with that, we can move through things so much more quickly. And we really need to be doing that. I mean, instead of getting bogged down into the struggle and focused on the struggle, we need to really be looking at it where it is that we want to be and just let the water, the tide, whatever, just continue to carry us as far as we can go as fast as possible, only stopping to enjoy and be grateful.
And I have to admit, I've been one who for the longest time has poo-pooed Twitter, poo-pooed Facebook. I could never see the purpose in spending my time reading about how they played with their dog in the backyard and what their kid did after school yesterday. Like, oh, please, I got better things to do in my time. This is so dull. This is dreadfully dull. How can anyone stand this? But then I discovered, wait a minute, it's actually a lot more than that. It's more than what's on the surface.
I felt exactly the same way. It's like, this is just silly. I mean, who's got time for this?
It reminds me of something that, what's her name? The woman who appeared on Golden Girls, the one who's still with us.
Betty White?
Betty White, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Betty White was on, I think she appeared on Saturday Night Live, and I think it was in that occurrence where she said this. But basically, she was asked about Facebook, and her reply was basically, why would anyone want to waste all of their time on something like that?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just
it's
summarizing it.
Well, you know, it's so funny when we look at where we came through on that. Well, because you felt the same way that I did, right? And so we believe that to be so, right? We believe that to be so, and for that period of time, it was true for us. But somewhere, something let in a little bit of a chance that maybe there's more to this thing. Maybe just because we continue to get exposure to it. You know, everybody started to be talking about it. Maybe then we said, you know, now I'm open just a little bit to investigating it a little bit more. And I see that, you know, with so many things, right? So when your belief is totally in this is a waste of time, you can't, you know, allow anything else. But if you can just open it a crack, and that's why I really like those asking questions of ourselves. So at some point, you and I probably said, you know, I wonder if there isn't something more to this that I'm missing.
Yes. Well, I said that when Facebook went public, and it didn't crash as badly as I thought it would. I didn't think that they'd hold their asking price, and they didn't. But I also thought it would go down into single digits, and it didn't. And I said, okay, then there's something going on here, because they're actually making money at this. And that I wasn't really sure they were able to do. So there must be something I must be overlooking. Of course, there was a whole ton I was overlooking that I didn't realize was going on. But yeah, that's exactly the case. We get our blinders on based on our earlier experience, and it's so easy to do. It's so easy to draw these conclusions based on such limited evidence. And by the way, if you ever want to have a look at some of the evidence that's out there about people who draw such conclusions, go online. Go to the online forums. Go to Facebook. Go to Twitter. Go to all these different places. You will find legions of people who draw these early conclusions, make these assumptions, create these limits for themselves, and then they can't get around them. It's amazing how many people will display that. I didn't think people would, but they do.
They absolutely do, and you know, you really realize that, you know, we're talking about Twitter and Facebook, but in so many places in our lives we just jump to these conclusions and, you know, and believe it and live it, and it isn't until the time that we say, hey, you know, hold up a little bit, let me at least look at this a little differently, that we begin to allow the next growth, the next information, you know, to come to us. And, you know, I work with people all the time that are so close. And so, again, we come back to, well, might it be possible, right? Might it be possible? Or do you think you always have a terrible day on Monday?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that analogy, the terrible day on Monday. We have certain meanings that society has attached to different days of the week. Monday is the bad day when everybody's still dealing with the fact that they're going back to work. Wednesday is hump day. You're halfway through the week, and Friday is thank God it's Friday.
That's right, and I really see it with the salespeople that I work with. That they have really labeled their days as their best days and their worst days, and try to plan their calendar accordingly. So, you wonder, it's true for them because they believe it. So until we can begin to open the door to looking at it differently, that's the experience that they continue to have and will have.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. One of the things that I have found as I've pursued my own business through the ups and downs, both directions, is that the whole idea of the 5-day work week has kind of disappeared. I mean, literally, it gets to the point where I have to look at the calendar to find out what day it is, because I certainly don't have any sense of it like when I used to work in corporate America. That sense is gone. The idea of a hump day, what on earth is a hump day? That's what my experience is these days. It's just so far removed from it. So talk about how following your dreams, following the ideas that come to you, staying as much as you can on the positive track and so forth, leads you away from that in a relatively quick manner if you allow it to.
Absolutely. Like we said earlier, it can start coming very, very quickly when you get to that place where you're just saying, wow, okay, let's move forward again and again and again and again, and realizing that it is this process and that you absolutely can know that you can have it. As long as you begin to open that door to knowing that those are my dreams and I get to have those, then you're willing to work through the process. It's only when we start believing that we're never going to get there, we don't get to have it, that we begin to really, really struggle, and we then get stuck just, twirling around and around in a circle instead of moving toward it.
My brother Mark and his girlfriend Ioana are both also into the LOA thing, and we've actually had one show that we did with them. We'll probably do some more interviews with them because they're also into it. Ioana is pursuing a degree, and I'll probably get this wrong. I think it's in biomedical sciences with an emphasis on neurology. And one of the things that she's been doing in the course of pursuing her PhD is noticing and actually spending time studying various ways that LOA can be identified and examined, in a sense, within the scientific structure of her studies. For instance, one thing that neuroscience and neuroscientists, I should say, know already is that the brain, through the ability to just change thought process from negative to positive or vice versa, will instantly change biochemistry to the point where within like a 4-second span, if you're, say, in a negative frame of mind and you are able to put yourself at least temporarily into a positive frame of mind and think about something positive and get excited about it, within about 4 or 5 seconds, your biochemistry will change to match that and will start sending out everything from hormones to other chemical signals and triggers that will actually change the structure of your neurology. Which I think is just fascinating. And it does work in both directions. It works going from negative to positive, and it works from positive to negative, which is both exciting and daunting at the same time.
Absolutely. And, science has actually known it for a very long time, but we're now beginning to see that it can be demonstrated because we go all the way back to the fact that, wait a minute, why does a placebo work? Why do we do all this testing on all of these drugs to eliminate the placebo effect? And it's like, wow, I guess science has known this for a really long time.
Oh, yeah. They're just beginning to recognize what they know, but you're right. They have known it for quite some time. Mm-hmm. One of the most interesting things that you want to describe was how if you go from a positive to a negative frame of mind, the receptors on the neurons and the chemicals associated with the neurons actually reduce in number. Believe it or not, the receptors, which are designed basically to take in nutrients and take in electronic signals and so forth, they actually close up and reduce in number when you start thinking negative thoughts. Just amazing.
It is amazing. And you look at, what the body does. I mean, you get a little tiny bit of an infection or something in your system, and white cells go rushing over there. And that's one of the things I focus on every single morning, that my body is an amazing healing machine. It really is miraculous if you think about it. It's always in a state of healing. It's just trying to just move from wherever it is with whatever's going on in it to this state of health. And, that really is what we're doing on our journey as well. We're constantly just moving through this stuff to this next state, of well-being, which was really there all along, right?
Right.
But we're continuing to just make those corrections, and to do it, from a state of knowing, right, and versus just allow it to happen, because it could be a lot longer journey if we just allow it to happen. But the end result is that I believe that we're all going down this one path. There's just a myriad of ways to get there. We can't get it wrong in any way, shape, or form, and all paths lead to the same direction. So, when you look at that process and realize that, hey, I might as well enjoy it. I know I can have the things I want along the way or not. I do have that choice. I can wallow in being worried and all of this fear and continue to create more of that or not. But at the end, we're all going to be in this wonderful place, and we might as well enjoy the journey. And we might as well learn and move to that state of joy as quickly as possible. And so I guess that's what my whole life has become, is just the opportunity to let people know that they can take their time, or they can move to the state of joy very quickly through just, realizing and working through and beginning to open themselves up to allow the knowledge that they already have to come to them.
I also know that in my own life, one of my earliest challenges, and a challenge I still have to this day sometimes, is dealing with the fact that through the training we talked about, we referred to this at the very beginning of the interview, where we were talking about how we're taught no from a very early age, and the limitations begin from a very early age to the point where we almost become hamstrung by the time we're adults. But as I was dealing with my own limitations in the early process of trying to adapt and apply LOA and its concepts, and I would become very frustrated with how often I would slip. I'd get myself focused on the positive, and amazingly, within seconds, all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm on the negative again. How on earth did I get there? It wasn't until Ioana told me about what was happening with the biochemistry that I actually felt like there was hope, because I realized if the body does react that quickly, literally within just seconds, to your change in thoughts, then it does become possible to do what I call train your LOA muscle, to basically develop the muscle to the point where you can get stronger at staying in the positive frame of mind, because any efforts you make toward that ultimate goal actually pay off very quick dividends. And so you can get the feedback that we all want on a very quick basis, just by the fact that when you feel better, you get better results going on in your body almost instantly. That's reassuring for me.
It is, and I think we talked about it a little bit earlier in the conversation as well, is that if you're going to be sitting in a spot where you're totally focused on all of the things that you don't want, right, then you can certainly attract more of those to you, and it happens to us all of the time. But when
Absolutely.
you begin to realize that you have control of the process, I used to get up in the morning, like I said, and I'd spend some time in meditation. Then I would, at some part of the day, spend some time in visualization. But the rest of the day, I was just letting the world come at me, right? And so that building that muscle that you were talking about begins to put you in this place where you realize that, yes, I will constantly move through opportunities to flex that muscle, but it doesn't have to be painful. I can just catch myself in the moment and do it over and over and over again all day long, and pretty soon it really does get to be a pretty big, strong muscle. But at any point along the way, I mean, I can just totally decide not to do that and to spend my focus again back on, wallowing in those negative thoughts. And we're wonderful beings that have total free will to do it either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. And in fact, when I carry out my analogy of the LOA muscle, I think in terms of us all starting out as the classic 98-pound weakling. And in my first couple of weeks working with it, I graduated to a 100-pound weakling, and then to a 101-pound weakling. And each step of the way, I was actually getting stronger, but I was doing it in small incremental amounts. So that way it made it easier for me to kind of swallow it. Plus, I know that while more and more people are kind of grabbing onto the concept of LOA, there's a large portion of the population that's still relatively ignorant of it or even discounting of it. So I figure, well, even if I just get to 100 pounds, I'm still ahead of most of them.
I think, some people would find that a little bit scary because it's like, man, do I have to keep working out all day, every day? And so I remember feeling that way at some point. It's like, wow, I'm not ever going to get done with this. That's scary to me. But at the same time, when you get to that spot where you really can experience it all, enjoy, it doesn't matter anymore. It's the negative attention we give to the experience that makes it uncomfortable, and you get to the point where this is fun. Here it comes again. Wow,
Yeah, absolutely.
But for a while, it's like, oh man, I do not want to go to the gym all day, every day.
Yeah. And what I realized was, even when I was trying it at the very early stages, not only was I not going to the gym all day, every day, I was going to the gym for about 4 seconds.
Exactly.
Because that's what the real attention span was. I began to notice that if I really put my effort into, thinking a positive thought, I would be able to hold it at first for maybe 1 second. And if I really stretched myself, maybe 2 seconds. And then I'd be waiting for something to happen, and then I'd fall into the negative pattern again. So after doing that for a while and moaning and groaning about, how I can't seem to break this habit and so forth, it finally occurred to me, how much time do I actually spend in that positive moment? If I'm only spending a second or two, well, shoot, if I'm getting any results at all, I'm doing pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think it was Jim Self's material that the light on really went on for me on the the electrical and magnetic. He used an analogy of those big pieces of steel in the junkyards that can pick up buses and cars and move them from one place to another. And he talked about how our emotions basically magnetize that piece of steel. And it gets stronger and stronger and stronger as it goes around. So first it's just a piece of steel, then we wrap an emotion around it and we charge it, and it gets stronger and stronger. At first you can only maybe pick up a Volkswagen. Pretty soon it can pick up a bus. And so here we are out there practicing our law of attraction, and we got just a tiny bit of charge on the positive, and we have all this other stuff all day long that's charging and charging and charging in the negative direction. And we wonder why is it so hard to see some proof that law of attraction works in our lives. And so, it's just wrapping more and more positive emotion around it. And I did a call night last night with a sales team, and they're calling people on the phone. It was really fun because one gal said, I am no good at this. I can't do it, and she just continued to bring the negative to it and was having a terrible experience. And the other person over on the other side of the room was excited and saying, I love this. And they were just making sale after sale after sale. And I just found that just amazing to be able to just see it so plainly there, what was happening in that dynamic. And I've worked with the same team before a few different times. And it's interesting, the brand new person who comes in, and they always say, beginner's luck. Watch the new person get on the phone tonight, and they're going to make all kinds of sales, even though they're stumbling with the words, right? Mm-hmm. And we see it over and over again because they don't have any of that negative charge on it, and the sales just come flooding in. And yet the person who has done it for a while, they have up and down experience, and they begin to further and further charge the negative until they may call all evening and not even make a sale. Mm-hmm. And to me, being able to see those law of attraction playing out so clearly really helps me to continue to realize that as I look around my life, what am I putting the charge on? And how can I just begin to move a little bit more in the direction of the positive, and then a little more, and then a little more. And for me, so much of the time, it was when I was really in a state of negativity, music was the only thing that was going to move me just a little way. So, I would be, putting the radio on or going and finding some music, because that helped me just to feel a little bit better. And then I knew I could find the next better feeling thought and continue to move through the process.
Yeah. I found music helped me a lot too, and I still rely on music periodically, especially if I'm having a difficult time on a day. I'll just, put on some. I have a little mix, what they call a mash these days, of my own favorite upbeat songs, and I have a whole list of them that I play off of my computer whenever I need to get that pickup. So yeah, it definitely works. I was also remembering a little bit as you were talking there about how my own process went in that early stage where I was trying to get from the 98-pound weakling to graduate up to 100-pound weakling. And one of the things that made the difference for me is I heard an Abraham Hicks presentation in which Esther Hicks, who's channeling Abraham, talks about how all you have to do is hold it for 17 seconds to get the thing going. And I thought that was the first time I'd ever seen an actual number placed on it, 17 seconds. And she said if you can get it up to 68 seconds, not only do you get it going, but you ensure that it's going to come through as quickly as possible. So I said, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll just get a little stopwatch and time myself and see if I can hold it that long. So I did, and found to my dismay that my attention span at that point was about 4 seconds. Okay, we got to try this one again. So I pick another thought. So I picked another thought to work on, and this time I was not only going to think about the thought, I was going to hold the emotion, and I stayed with it for 6 seconds. And then all of a sudden my mind just started to wander into something else. I kept telling myself, well, it's related, so that makes it okay. No, you got to focus on the thing. All right, try one more. So I tried to get in there. I'd stay in like that 4 to 6 second range, and then finally had a breakthrough, got past 10 seconds.
Wow.
Well, it still wasn't at 17.
Doesn't that tell us, though, that the real sustained effort might not be the best approach to that,
you have to mix things up.
That maybe is not going to do it for us. That's again back to me driving and striving for the things I was wanting instead of allowing it to come. Isn't it easy to laugh with a child and feel great for a number of seconds than to just focus on one?
And that's exactly what happened, of course, because as time went on, I didn't get so anal, shall we say, about what was the actual time, but just simply focused on trying to improve my attitude and catch myself when I'm going negative and so forth. Over time, it got much easier. And it didn't actually take that long. I would say within probably a month or two. I mean, that's quite a lot of time when you're still in the dumps, but it's something that I decided to just continue to keep focusing on. We were all kind of doing it at the same time, Louise and Mark and Ioana and I. And during that time period, as I tried to catch myself each time I noticed that I was going into that negative frame of mind and pull myself back as much as I could, that alone was doing the exercise. So that the next time I actually tried that test, I flew past 17 seconds. I actually made it to 68. So just goes to prove.
Same thing with visualization. I work with a lot of folks who say, "Man, there's just no way I can keep my mind focused on something that I'm wanting for any period of time." And the reality is, if there's something that you really want, if focusing on it is a chore, then that really should be telling us something, right? Because for me, part of the process is being passionate and finding joy in something that I'm doing. I don't have to try to focus on it. It's only when we start believing we can't have it, or that, or maybe a thought like this is silly, or, I'm wasting my time, that we really get distracted from it. But the visualization of something that you want in your life and know that you can have shouldn't be work.
It's interesting that you mentioned visualization, because that was always a huge bugaboo for me. And I figured out why, or at least part of why. Part of it is that I've never had good vision. I've had glasses all my life. I mean, my left eye, I'm probably legally blind. I've never actually had somebody say you're legally blind in that eye, but I probably am. And in my right eye, I've got vision with glasses. Without glasses, it's pretty poor. So visualizing as a result has never been really, really easy for me. And I struggled with it for a long time until I finally realized that vision is one of our 5 senses. We have 4 others. And so I started thinking in terms of, well, what are my strong senses? Well, hearing and touch. Those are my 2 best senses. So I started trying to, quote, visualize, unquote, in terms of sound and touch. And when I did that, all of a sudden, visualization became easier for me.
It's back again to where we have an idea or a belief of what the word means, right?
Right.
And can't relate to it in any other way. But again, open your mind to the possibility of how could I see this a little bit differently allowed you to have that answer come to you that led to the next step.
Yep. I wasn't going to let what I perceived as my inability to visualize as well as anybody else, because I talked to the people. I said, can you actually see the pictures? And they said, oh, yeah. And I said, well, I can't see anything. I get this little blur in my mind. That's all I ever get. I felt deprived. But I was just determined not to let that get in the way. I don't really know. I didn't really know how I was going to not get in the way, but I figured there must be some other way. I mean, how could blind people visualize? There must be a way that they do it. Otherwise, how could they ever achieve any of their goals? They must be able to. The universe has to provide some way for them to be able to do it. So I just decided I was going to find what it was. And that's when one day I woke up and said, I've got 4 other senses.
So it's the feeling of it for me. And that's, I think, why when I really, really started working with this, many things came to me very quickly because I could enhance it with so much feeling that, my vibration just would soar with it.
Yes.
It just wasn't work anymore. It wasn't like, oh man, I have to spend some time visualizing today. I realized I was doing it all the time. I just stop for just a second and think about something, and I could get real excited about it.
Yeah, and the whole idea of applying emotion too, that was a big breakthrough for me because for the longest time I was just trying to do pictures that had no emotional content to them, not realizing how important the emotional aspect of it was. And failing miserably.
Well, and that's it. I think that in hearing you, I realized that you're one of those wonderful technical people, those engineer types that I get to work with, who wants to take it down to the mechanics of it and analyze it to death, right? And feeling doesn't come in there a lot of the time. But the feeling piece of it is just so huge. I mean, that's the energy. That's, and the more you play with the feeling of it, the more that you really can recognize and feel that vibrational change that's happening and get those tingly feelings and be guided by it. I mean, I had done a little piece out there on Guided Abundance talking about, what if you really had a GPS that just told you go this way, go this way, go this way. So all you got to do is plug in where you want to go, and anytime you got off track, it was just going to guide you. What if you had that? Well, I believe that we do have that, but it's learning to recognize that, that voice is back there saying, make a legal U-turn or turn left, turn right. And, many times people are hearing a voice. Many times people are having a feeling, right? And whatever it is, the way that you best receive it, it's coming to you, and it's coming all the time. It's just whether you need to turn it up or not.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I do have that strong left brain orientation. I'm fortunate, perhaps, compared to many people in that I actually do connect well to both hemispheres of my brain. I've always had the ability to do both to, I think, a larger degree than most people can. But nevertheless, I had been trained and had trained myself to rely heavily on the left brain. So the right brain, in some sense, had been atrophied a bit. And it wasn't until one day, I don't even remember when it was, but until I actually started to try to pay attention to the emotional side that, you're right, that's when everything started to get fun. That's when the colors came back. That's when the excitement came back. That's when the enthusiasm came in. That's when I finally discovered, for one thing, that what I'd been doing for the last 15 years was not where my passion was. It was only when I started to allow those emotions to come through that I finally realized, hey, wait a minute, I shouldn't have been on this path. There's this other path over here I should have been on.
It's so funny because as you're saying all of that, I mean, I can feel that. I can feel that energy within you, and, it's coming right to me. And it's so interesting because, we've had this conversation for an hour, but right in those last few seconds, I can feel the energy of that. and tap into it. So
Cool.
I just think that that's amazing that, you discovered that that was really the power, and it's so powerful I can feel it.
I'm doing pretty well then. I've been discovering a variety of different ways that I can transmit actual energy, not just, imaginary energy, but actual real energy. I mean, Louise and I have experimented with a very tiny piece of Reiki that we know about. We don't know the whole thing at all, but we have one little page that came out of a book, and so we've used that when one of us is feeling pain or something like that. And we can actually feel the energy fields on certain areas of our body where, there's pain going on. It's amazing. I actually feel it in the palm of my hand. I said, wow, that's not me imagining it. There's something really going on there. It's like this magnetic field going on there. And realizing that the more that I engage my emotions, the more I tap into that, that's really quite exciting. That's a very exciting thing because it may not be something that I can prove scientifically. I can't think of any way to do a double-blind study on that. But if I can tangibly experience it, so it actually is not something that I'm just thinking that maybe is there, but I'm actually feeling it like, oh my goodness, that's actually really there, that starts to become real for me.
Again, it's just opening the door a crack. Just
right.
open it, ask the question.
You're right. It doesn't have to be much.
And you will see more and more and more evidence of it. And no, you might not be able to prove it to somebody else that's not asking, right? The double-blind study, that would try to provide the evidence to somebody who's really not asking for it. But you'll be able to share it with people who are asking to receive it. And you'll begin to meet all kinds of people who can bring you more and more evidence of it.
In fact, the whole concept of the double-blind study is something that I've been questioning for quite some time because for the last 50, 60 years, science has actually known that there's a serious flaw in double-blind studies. Nobody's really willing to investigate it in a large community-wide way for the scientific community. But there are some people within the scientific community, obviously, who are experimenting and investigating it. But most scientists are, they just discount it and they put it aside. But that's the phenomenon of the observer. The Heisenberg principle, or what's often called the uncertainty principle, where the observer actually influences the results, which completely invalidates the whole concept of a double-blind study, because the whole purpose of double-blind study is to make sure that no particular person is influencing the results of the study. Well, if you can't get rid of that, how can you trust double-blind studies? That's the thing that science doesn't want to come to terms with. And I'm just becoming more and more fascinated by the fact that science is violating its own rules.
It's so funny because it reminded me of when I was first talking about law of attraction back in my network marketing days. I did a training class for one of the companies that I worked for, and people would call in, and I would guide them through the steps. And I started to just try to, get a little bit of information about law of attraction into those calls. And I thought, man, they're going to think I'm nuts. But I got a little bit more brave and a little bit more brave, and it was so interesting. I finally said, if you don't really believe that you're creating your reality, then I want everybody tonight, as soon as we get off the phone, to go sit in their easy chair and imagine that they're getting sick.
You have this mean side to you, don't you?
Because, well, I was trying to prove a point, but it was so interesting because I had, at that point in time, I had remembered that every time that I had ever, back in school, wanted to, stay home from school that day, I would be like, oh, if I was sick, I could stay home. Every time I ever did that, I got sick and had to stay home. And it was so interesting. I never got to enjoy just, playing hooky and staying home because I had to create being sick first, and I was very good at it, and I'd get sick.
Mm.
I'd stay home, but I wouldn't get to go and have fun. So I knew I had power there, but it was so funny because as I would suggest that to people, almost everybody would say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, well, you don't believe in the law of attraction, right? Why not? Why wouldn't you do that test? If you don't believe it, it will, what's the harm? But nobody really wanted to take that chance, so they do really realize that they have the power to influence their health and all kinds of things. Interesting
way to break a mind open.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, just a crack.
There you go. A crack will do.
It reminds me of a video I saw of, again, Abraham Hicks, where she took a question from a guy who had been pursuing and studying LOA for a couple, 3 years, but he had gotten really, really frustrated with it because he was looking at the world as a whole and seeing things getting worse rather than getting better. He was trying to apply it holistically to the planet rather than just to himself. And through that experience, he kept looking and saying, this stuff, it doesn't work. The evidence is overwhelming. Every single time that I try to apply it, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I'm listening to this, and this is not the way she answered him, but the thought that occurred to me was, wow, what an interesting result. You're basically describing a situation where you always get the same result. Isn't that a case where you have a flag? Because if we're talking about trying to influence things and there's no law of attraction, there's no ability to create your own world, well, then that basically means we're reduced to a random environment. In a random environment, I would expect things would work out like some of the time. But never?
Yeah, really, that should explain it right there, right? If you're just going to toss the coin enough times. It's interesting, though, when you were talking about him visualizing on, whether things are getting worse or better in the planet, because I work with a couple of clients, and I've used the analogy as a home remodel a lot. And, I think I really did get that from one of the Abe Hicks tapes back in the day as well, and because you talked a lot about how, we have to go through the remodel part, the mess of tearing out the old and having things be in disarray and coming home and finally saying, gosh, I can't live with all of this clutter. I just want my big, new, beautiful kitchen. And so, we don't really want to look at the process. And I think that what we're seeing with the planet and things that we might look at from one point of view and see negative things happening and is that just exactly that we're really looking at what's going on right now and this mess of this remodel of the kitchen versus the beautiful new kitchen that's going to be there in just a little while if we just continue to work through the process. So
I want to bring in one last concept, and then we should probably draw to a close because we've been going for about an hour, 20 minutes or something like that. We're really
I told you we could go all day and all night.
Unfortunately, Louise had to step away, but she wanted me to say goodbye before she left. So goodbye in absentia from Louise.
Okay, but, I can't wait to have an opportunity to get together again with her.
Yeah, well, we're both going to look forward to that. Just the last thought I wanted to touch upon was this whole concept of choice, because we all have a choice of whether or not we're going to believe in this or try this or do this or not do it. And the thing that always occurs to me whenever I'm facing a negative time and so forth is, well, I've got the choice. Do I really want to keep living the way I'm feeling right now, or do I want to change? And unfortunately, sometimes I choose, I'm just going to stay the way I'm right now. But the times when I choose the other way, that's the time when my energy starts to flow. You described how you felt it just 10, 15 minutes ago, whatever it was, that the energy starts flying through microphones and telephones, for goodness sake.
Exactly.
So there's the choice. We have the choice. We can start, flowing the energy and feeling it and feeling good about it, or we can continue to stay in the negative position.
Mm-hmm. And I think we all have times where we just want to stay in it for a little bit longer. But, we're evolving and changing, and the world's evolving and changing. And thank goodness, I don't think anybody gets to well, maybe you could if you really chose it, but I don't think you get to stay in it forever, But
I don't think you'd want to.
We choose to do it sometimes for a little while, and that's okay. I think that's a message I want people to continue to know, too. That's okay.
Oh, sure.
You don't have to worry that terrible things are going to happen to you and you're going to attract a terrible situation because you focused a few more seconds in an area of negativity. Instead, I think the message really is to know that, you can choose differently, and that fortunately we do have a delay in manifestation, and that those powerful thoughts are just so much stronger than those negative ones, that, you can quickly get back up on that horse and start to ride really, really quickly. And, so the fear that, oh, my gosh, I've really now backslid and now I have all of these terrible things coming my direction really doesn't have to be there. But you will get stronger and stronger, like we talked about earlier, and have less and less of those to deal with.
Well, Debbie, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. Before we let you go, why don't you give everybody where they can find out more about you?
Sure. GuidedAbundance.com is my blog. You can also email me at CoachDebbieJ @gmail.com. That's my personal email versus my business one, and I would be glad to hear from anybody with questions or sharing your own experiences. And it's just so fun to be able to interact with like-minded people.
Debbie Johnson from GuidedAbundance.com. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.